Morning, everybody. I'm here with a picture of.
Hey, everybody. I'm not really just looking at you still. I am actually, that's actually, surprisingly, that's the best picture of me available, which is something we really need to talk to Andy about. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think it looks.
Yeah.
I mean,
it doesn't, Joe. It doesn't at all. My head is like 4 times as big as yours. Once again, Joe, you're looking all petite and presentable, and I'm just a giant head, like Baron Munchausen.
yeah.
See, and that's the excitement that you cause in my inner child. Well, it's actually my outer child. My son is making that noise in the background. All right, guys. Well, so anything interesting happened this week, Joe? Something about an exchange listing?
We've been grinding away on that since March, February.
Yeah, for a while. For a while we've been doing it. And finally, it's here. Yes, as everybody saw yesterday, we were very happy to announce listing on Huobi Global. And so not only is this a great exchange overall, it is, I believe, the second largest in Asia after Binance. It's just really going to help us to get Ergo out there and really get it. Just really pick up interest. There's going to be some marketing that's going to be following this, and of course, it's going to add to our volume. Really excited about this. This was in the making for several months now. And finally, we were able to let you guys know what we've been doing behind the scenes. And not only is it great that we actually we finally listed on Huobi, we also were able to develop a special wallet instance specifically for exchange listings. So going forward, we will actually have a much easier time integrating with new exchanges. So that's a really good thing. One of the reasons why it took quite a bit longer than it should have, or we hope that it would have, but some good things definitely came out of it taking this long, taking longer, which is, like I said, this custom wallet integration that we can now use with other exchanges. So aside from that, of course, we've seen the ecosystem exploding. Really happy to see this, as I'm sure many Ergonauts are. Guys, just the new people, give them as much help as you can. The veterans, the OGs. Give them as much help as you can. Send them to the right place. Documentation, Ergo Manifesto, and just do your thing. So again, in the education vector, we are going to be announcing it in October. Again, this is a really exciting thing that we're doing, Ergo-centric, and we're just basically ironing out more of the curriculum right now. The next item up for bid is CNFTCon in Las Vegas, October 8th to the 9th. So we will be there. The EF and Zengate will be there, sharing a pretty sizable booth, letting our presence known, and really just kind of spreading the gospel of Ergo into the world. And so please stop by the booth. We'd love to meet each and every one of you. Also, I'd like to ask that the various projects, the various Ergo projects that are going to be at CNFTCon, please reach out to us so that we can start putting together a fire chat schedule, because we're going to have fireside chat chats during the summit, and so we'd just like to start lining it up. So we have a group for that on Telegram. If you do not are not in the group, please reach out to me in Telegram. If you are in the group, please let us know when you're available and when you would like to do the fireside chat. So we're going to do it one day, I believe the 8th. So let's get you guys lined up. It's also going to be filmed as well. And so we're also going to be putting it up on YouTube afterwards. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's it for me. What about you, Joe?
Well, I think we had some exciting news this week. We've been expanding the ecosystem partnership with Flux this week. Those of you that don't know, it's another project that is very much decentralized infrastructure related. I personally am a fan of that type of project. I think that as the industry evolves, there's going to be an increasing need to get away from kind of Web 2 hosting. And personally, I look forward to the day where we have a pretty well-known blueprint for actually distributed dApps and distributed infrastructure that's not, just the standard Amazon Web Service hosting or Azure hosting, but actually has some of the resiliency and principles that are built in. Flux is a great partner with that so far. There are a lot of other interesting things as well. We have some people in the Ergo community that are really into Urbit or other P2P type networks. And I think that also is interesting in terms of, having infrastructure support and access. That is something that I imagine will continue. So far, they've been really easy to work with. Nice team. Obviously, the noise of the day, let's call it, is around the merge. I think we're pretty much within a week of when people expect that to kick off, which, will be pretty wild. So some wild times ahead in that regard. I'm sure that us expanding, our market access a little bit will help to some degree. I'm happy we were able to get that live before the merge. But, it's crypto. So 3 seconds later, I was asked when next one. And so no time to pat myself on the head. We got to keep grinding, take the next step, get more market access. I personally would love to see Ergo listed in the US. That's definitely a goal. Our biggest weakness is probably volume because we're not so heavy into making markets, which has its pros and its cons. The pro is we get organic growth. And so a lot of the trading that we see on different exchanges is just organically driven versus an artificial market making, which is good, but it's also slower and that's growing. We've seen a lot of popularity around the merge. So, our volume numbers have been pretty impressive. Looking at our hash rate, we're picking up miners moving into the merge, which is good to see. So we just need to kind of keep building, keep that motion in progress. I think we've done pretty well in terms of momentum there. A couple of things that I think will be long-term drivers of adoption. The Nautilus Wallet team is working on a SDK called Fleet. The goal with Fleet is to create a parallel tool to the app kit in terms of functionality that will take the barrier of entry in terms of ErgoScript development and actually support it in JavaScript. And our goal, is to support that within the EF. I know that Morphic has been working with Nemo and they've been discussing how they can keep those two in parallel. And that would be huge in terms of just developer tooling. And now we have DAppStep, we have Ergo tutorials. I know LadoPixel's done some great work there. We also have Deco. And so we have this community infrastructure that can really amplify and just drive the adoption of that particular toolkit. And I'm quite excited to see that kick off. I know that development of that may take a few months, but as it rolls out, I'm sure there's going to be a ton of interest. And, there's a lot of minor developers having kind of the JavaScript entry is big, TypeScript as well. So excited. Good times.
Yeah, and just to kind of give you a little bit of an update. So we are actively working on facilitating the next listing, and so this one, of course, we're of course trying to open up access in the U.S. and North America. So please just hang in there with us, and it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task. Integrating L1 mainnet blockchain like Ergo into an exchange. Everybody wants an ERC20. Everybody's like, what's your ERC20 address? It's ERC20. Hey, well, we'll get you integrated next week. Once you integrate this week. Our L1s are a harder sell, but definitely worth it once the momentum picks up.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. We are working on getting you guys more access, and hopefully soon we will have more listings. Well, I know we will. I'm just saying. Hopefully the next one won't take as long. So, all right, Joe. So
you got to head out. Well, I was just going to add, in terms of the user experience, right? I know that wrapping a asset and getting it listed as an ERC20 is faster and cheaper. But the reality is it is painful for a lot of users. There's always a ton of issues in terms of, let's say, people sending the wrong asset of ERG to the wrong, to the exchange wallet. It's something that I have always said, let's try to avoid, because it hurts users and it doesn't open doors for our community projects. Versus having a full mainnet listing means they're supporting the Ergo chain, which means that native assets on top of Ergo then potentially get access to market, versus if you just bridge to Ethereum Rapid as an ERC20, you don't open doors for the community. And that's one thing that the Ergo Foundation really needs to focus on. That's one of our goals, is to not only support ERG, but also kind of open doors for our community as a whole. And we've started discussions with multiple exchanges in terms of how best to support that. So I'm quite excited to see this mainnet listing. And yeah, it's just one step. We'll keep working on it. I'm pretty sure there will be another step, and then another step, and another step. And along the way, this is crypto. So I wake up every day and I prepare for the internet to destroy me, because there's always somebody that's unhappy out there. And so, it'll be win this, win that, win global reserve standard, Yeah, we're working on. Be patient. That's all I can ask. But I say that with no expectation it'll actually happen. So what can you do?
Yeah. Well, we're what we can do is just keep working for the community. This is a conversation that happened a few months ago, but we were basically speaking to, I believe in the main chat, somebody said, well, you guys don't always give these really, robust, great, juicy news, right, on every single AMA. And I had to respond to that. And this is basically from, this basically comes from the Charles Hoskinson School of how to do AMAs. And, just watching Charles do it for so many years, I can tell you, an AMA is not really meant for juicy news. An AMA is you reporting to your boss, the community. So you guys are our boss. We are reporting to you. And that's why we have these things every week. We give you development updates. We'll let you know what we've been doing. So that it's transparency. That's what it's about. That's what these AMAs are for, is transparency. Sometimes we do have some great news for you. I wish we could have great news for you every single time. But it's just all about transparency, and it's all about reporting to the boss, you guys.
Yeah, and AMA means ask anything. I don't think that I'll always answer anything. I get a lot of strange requests, They're like, hey, it's no fun. You should, take off your shirt. And now there's got a couple messages I need to compete with Vitalik after that photo online last week. That's not going to happen. So, curb your
When Putin writing on the bear pig, Joe?
Yeah, I don't know.
When shirtless Putin, when shirtless Joe pig writing on whatever you write on. Actually bears. You got bears up there.
Yeah. I just that me though. I'm not trying to write it.
Joe's like, are you crazy? It's like 10 degrees out here during the summer.
You want to get into the questions, Dad?
Yeah, sure, Joe. Yeah, Joe, I see Joe's like, all right, Dan, enough of that. All right, let's get into these questions.
All right, so the first one, is Huobi a primary Chinese Asian exchange? I've never heard of it before. Yeah, they're pretty big, actually. If you look at CoinGecko, which, by the way, CoinMarketCap did actually finally get back to us after like a year of stasis, where they updated our metrics to reflect the accurate emission. But yeah, they're a popular exchange. They do move a lot of volume. So I'm quite excited. It's a step, it's not the end all listing for us, but it certainly is a step in the right direction. And, the reality is moving into the merge, there is a lot of Asian miners, right? It's shifted over the years, but for a long time in crypto, you could almost look at the Eastern markets as like the value creation side when things were more proof of work oriented. And then the Western markets is more of like the investor side. I think that has been disrupted a little bit over time, where mining has become more popular and infrastructure has been built out more in the West to support value creation and proof of work. But there's still a ton of Asian miners out there. And so having access to Asian markets is good. That is a big part of value creation and proof of work. And I do think
absolutely. And look, there's a lot of interest out here. When I speak about Ergo to the Japanese community and to the Japanese Cardano community, and yeah, the fact that now they have access. I mean, they had access before, but Huobi is a pretty well known exchange in Asia. Out here, it started in China, now it's in Singapore. But it's a pretty damn well known exchange out here. I think it's definitely going to start bringing in a lot of traffic from over this side of the world. And by the way, guys, if for some reason I start getting a little, how shall I say it, a little choppy, my apologies. I might get rugged, as a certain pixelated dog has been telling us for some time now. I don't have very good connectivity here or connection. I am up in the mountains of Wakayama right now, so just FYI. All right, Joe. What's next on the question?
Sure. So we have
on our question list.
We have a question from EO, and he's asking about the cold storage Ergo wallet. So if you buy a brand new Android phone, go online once to download the app, then turn the phone off permanently, would you say this is roughly as safe as Ledger? I think the best way is actually not to go online. It's to sideload it. Basically, you can have a Android phone. You can turn it on, not connect it to Wi-Fi. Keep it cold and sideload it from your computer. And is it roughly as safe as Ledger? It's air gapped, so I would say it's pretty much similar. That's kind of the point of a hardware wallet, is you have that air gap mechanism. I'm actually a fan of the cold storage Ergo wallet. I think Ledger's they piss me off, right? I've got big hands and they've got these little fiddly buttons, and I'm sitting there, hitting these little fiddly buttons, and I don't know. I don't like the UI, the UX of Ledger. So having a cold storage wallet on the phone is something that almost every user is familiar with. They can handle. They have a nice screen. I've had people ask me, what to do, especially since, Ledger has been a little slow. And for those of you that are interested, the last I heard is the ETA on their side was at the end of next week. So touch wood, pray to your savior, whatever. Let's hope that gets pushed. In software development, it can be hard to predict timelines, but that's my latest update. So I'll pass that on. But if people ask me, how do you think is the easiest way to store long term? I would say the cold storage wallet, especially new users, right? If you're talking about so easy, grandma can do it, and you give her this little, hardware wallet with little fiddly buttons, that might be a tutorial in itself and a test in patience to teach a new user how to use that effectively. But having the phone solution is quite simple. Because most people have experience they can draw upon to use that. Then, as always, if you're ever going to save crypto, save your keys, right? Every once in a while, we do get people that hop on to support channels and they say, hey, I lost my keys. What can I do? And, unfortunately, at that point, they've pretty much given a donation to miners via storage rent over time.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that reminds me, we filmed a new episode of Ergo Pulse this week. And so this was with Mr. S. Now, he told me how to pronounce his name right, and I screwed it up. And now I can't remember. It's Stahl. How do you say wheel? Steel wheel.
Mr. Steel Wheel, yeah.
Yeah, how do you say the second part right, Joe?
Alfelg.
What is it?
Oh, it's early. Mr. Stahl.
Yeah, it sounds very German. Well, because it is German.
It is early in the morning, so.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. All right. Well, I think you'll forgive us. So Mr. S, we filmed the new Ergo Pulse episode with Mr. S, and we talked all about his development background and how he joined the Ergo ecosystem, and also really dug into his wallet or wallets, the Android wallet and the iOS Ergo wallet Terminus, now named Terminus. And so, they'll be coming out shortly. So I hope you guys enjoy that. And actually, we were discussing it's a hardware wallet function, right? So it's basically built into the wallet where you can pretty much use any old device as a hardware wallet. So we were just talking about that, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Yup, indeed. All right. Well, let's go to the next question.
Sure. This is from Wendy Moon. Wendy Moon said, do you expect to see an influx of developers to come along with the influx of miners, and which is more important for us right now? Well, I'm going to say that miners probably are foundational, right? If you don't have miners, you don't have a proof of work network, right? There's no point for developers to exist if miners don't exist, because the security they deliver ultimately is what protects, secures, and creates transactions on chain. So I'm going to go team miner. Now, that being said, developers are huge, and we need to continually work as a community to onboard them, lower the barrier of entry, provide tools, SDKs, tutorials, support, and open code, which is huge in terms of everything I just mentioned, in terms of teaching people to use them. So I think we'll see both. Now, the truth is, if you look at a lot of other proof of work projects around the merge, ETH Classic doesn't really have that big of a development community. Same with Raven. Flux does okay. They have, a decent development around them. There's a lot of proof of work coins that really don't have development. And I do think that even though short term miners are more important because you don't have a proof of work blockchain without miners, long term developers do create kind of like the use case, development path, and future of a chain. So there's some synergy there that just needs to be respected. If you look at Ergo, we do have a pretty substantial development community. We do have the right type of developers to where we have a lot of open code. And the reality is, as the network grows, we need to probably stick to first principles, because you will have a lot of the same shenanigans, nonsense, and just general bullshit that we see across the crypto ecosystem, where, somebody spins up a fancy website, says, I'm going to make a project, and there's no code, but there's some marketing, and then some people get suckered. So let's try to stick to first principles, push for best development practices, some type of proof of development, and ultimately protect users. I think that's important, especially as Ergo becomes more known. We've benefited from kind of being a small, isolated ecosystem to where we've had good developers with good intent. And if you get into larger ecosystems, that's not always the case. So, Icefront, be aware of, your risks. Understand that sometimes when there's money involved, people are predatory. So hopefully we don't see too much of that. But it's something that, I kind of always have to warn the community about, because, well, it does happen in this space, unfortunately. But long term, I think with developers and miners, we have a pretty nice long-term path where hopefully as things develop, the user experience for both gets easier, the tooling for both gets easier, and ultimately like the value aspect of our network grows for both.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I don't really know what I can add to what Joe said, because that's pretty much it. Miners secure the network, so we definitely need those. That's basically, they are kind of the guardians, I would say, of the network itself. But of course, you can't just build a network just in mining. You actually need somebody to use it. So the developers are just as important, but it just I don't know if you can actually compare them, right? So it's two different directions. The developers grow the ecosystem out, and the miners grow the security of the network out. So I think two move in parallel. And I believe that both are just equally as important to the development of the ecosystem.
Next question. Let's see. Why is Ergo fun?
Well, it's amazing that Andy got rugged before I did.
There we are. Sorry, we got rugged there for a minute. Hopefully I didn't freeze with some crazy position. So the next question has to do with, why is Erg not tradable on Huobi? People are asking and worrying. That's a good question. So how Huobi designed the listing is they wanted to create a certain threshold of liquidity. They're running a promotion where they're trying to reward locking, I think, a minimum or a maximum of like 200 Erg. So they're trying to create some community-driven event and establish liquidity. So they're still building positions, it seems. The reality is I woke up, put on some clothes, made a coffee, and got here. So I'm a little bit behind today, but I'll catch up and make sure that everything's fine. I'm pretty sure it is. It should just be they're waiting for a liquidity threshold to be met, and then things will go live.
Yep, it's just a matter of time. And again, what you have to understand is also we are now in a new market. Like I said, Huobi is really big out here in Asia. So we're basically building up a larger Asian Ergonaut community as we speak. People are, more and more getting into Ergo, finding out about Ergo, or getting a chance to own Erg. So that takes a little bit of time, but again, nothing to worry about. It will happen, and we just need to reach that threshold. And again, remember, we only got listed a day ago, so it'll take just a little bit of time. But after things spring off, I think we're going to be very happy.
Yeah. So, we had a nice comment below from Golden Ergs. He said, pretty sure I read trading starts once enough Erg is deposited on Huobi by users. And yeah, that's the case. So I'll talk to the team after this meeting, see where we're at, and give everyone an update. Then we have a nice comment by Sahar, who is one of our infamous shit posters. And yeah, whatever he says, just ignore him. Says, what's the next question? Adam Joseph said, this time next week, Ergo will be the biggest and most robust smart contract proof of work chain in existence. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the merge. I hope it goes well, to be honest. It'd be bad for our industry if there was some extra drama and nonsense in terms of that kind of handoff. So, we need to look at the industry first, because, one thing that's true is Ethereum does carry a tremendous amount of value, and having some kind of an issue there would not bode well on anybody. So good luck to them on their endeavors. Miners that just got rugged and thrown under the bus, sorry for that. I hope you can find home. I know that the reality is it'll probably be a little bit of mess madness. Those of you out there who are unsure, maybe take some time, take your rigs offline, clean them, wait for the dust to settle. And I think proof of work has some nice incentives, and I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just a certain consolidation and adjustment period that we'll need to go through. So everybody be ready for that.
Yep. All right. Well, and so there's actually a question from Adam Joseph. So it says, Dan would love to have that sweet looking meetup gnome in my wallet. I know you're holding them hostage. Yes, I am. My apologies for that. I will make sure that this week we start taking care of that. It is my bad, and I will, like I said, I will make sure that we start distributing those to all the people that joined us at the Ergo meetup in Austin. So, guys, just bear with me. Like I said, I will take I take full responsibility, and I will fix it.
Okay, so we have next one. Is there something you would want to see built on Ergo that's not currently being built? Oof, that's a hard question, because there's been a lot of proposals out there, right? And sometimes what teams will do is people have a life, right? It's got to start there. So they'll have an idea and they might spin up a project, and then life happens. And so things speed up, slow down, on their own side. But there's actually been a ton of proposals out there. I was pretty excited to see duck pools, as kind of like the first step towards, decentralized lending. I think that makes a lot of sense. I do think that once, DEXI is out, there's a lot of potential there. I'm really a fan of, let's say what Blitz is doing in terms of trading card games, just because I feel like, Mick has a lot of passion for what he does, and that's exciting to watch. In terms of like the DEX side, that's, pretty exciting to watch. Ergo, I guess they're not Ergo Pad, they're Spectrum now, or Ergo Dex Spectrum now. They changed on me. What they're doing with their layer 2, Ergo Pad launching new projects is pretty interesting. So there's a ton going on, right? And I do think that longer term, there will be some interesting DeFi frameworks that come out. That's one thing that I do think that extended UTXO and ErgoScript will kind of shift just in terms of the clear assumptions involved with how contracts are structured. But we're growing, right? So I can't say that there's much that, I'm seeing currently that I want more. I'm always a fan of just documentation, open source code, and collaboration. We're really doing well with that as a whole. I think as the ecosystem grows, hopefully we stick to that type of development. And, the reality is if you're looking at Excel, you're looking at all the projects across the ecosystem. You could look at Ergo Games or Swamp Audio or Night Owl. There's a ton of, let's just say, future there. And so I hope those dev teams stick around, really build out what they want to do, and disrupt, the current status quo and deliver value. So I don't think it's necessarily a matter of wanting more now. It's just commitment. I think that ultimately will deliver the most value.
Yeah, I must say Blitz. I love all the projects, guys. I mean, everybody's just building really
Yeah, and you sound like a drunk robot right now.
cool stuff. But make Blitz. I mean, his art is
No, you sound like a drunk robot though. So
Hey guys, did I lose you?
yeah, pretty much.
I am a drunk robot.
Yeah.
So, I was just saying that. Do I sound like a sober robot now?
I don't know. You might be able to pass the sobriety
I
test.
guess not. All right, hold on it. Anyway, I was just saying that the art, for Blitz, I just love it, and like I said, I don't want to play favorites here. I mean, I love all of your projects. You guys are doing an amazing job. Everybody that's building on Ergo. Yeah, I see mix art, but I just got to say that's some great art. Really love it. Good job, Mick.
All right, let's go to the next. We got a question from Blockchain Mommy. She said, forgive me if you guys have answered this question a billion times, but how will Ergo tackle scalability in the future if adoption pushes Ergo into a top 20 or so crypto? Well, that's a good question, right? So 1,000,000,001 times is really not a problem with a good question. We need to take a step back, okay, and understand the systems that we're working with. There's a push in this industry to have maximum TPS, right? It's a really sexy marketing term. You'll see it a lot when you read crypto literature. But you have to ask a question, right? When you get super, super high performance chains, the barrier of entry to actually act as a validator, usually it has to do with running a node. It becomes high, right? You need a hardware setup that is just beyond the barrier of entry for most average users. You need internet connection to, support that is not available everywhere. And so it naturally moves things towards a data center type setup, or at least a, very, very, very professional supercomputers type setup that is beyond the reach of many users, right? And you also have the concern of the size of state of the chain, right? So if you're recording thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions all the time, well, you have to store that, right? And so then your hardware requirements go up in terms of, the amount of storage that's required, and it moves things towards centralization. So the goal for Ergo is to use compression techniques, right? And there are kind of two sides of that. On one side, you could look at something like NepoPals, which compress the chain itself and minimize computational requirements. And then you can look at layer 2 solutions, which the goal is to take as much computation, put it off chain, and then have a small footprint on the main chain that keeps the state of the chain small and allows it to have greater throughput without requiring the supercomputer type infrastructure and having a chain state that just becomes unmanageable. So Ergo's scalability in the future is pretty much centered around compression. That would be the simplest way I could put it, where we can have more transactions on layer 2s while minimizing the impact on the base layer. Now, if you look at, let's just say, networks in general, a centralized network is always going to outperform a decentralized network, right? It's going to be faster. Now, the reality is the entire value proposition of crypto has to do with decentralization and resiliency. And so, Ergo is designed in a conservative way to protect decentralization. So I think that's going to be huge in terms of our future, in terms of scalability. Now, we already have developers that are talking, discussing, debating, and building scaling solutions. So that's already something that multiple projects have started to plug in. I have to tip my hat to Cheese Enthusiast, who's kind of led that march, but we're starting to see new developers show up and conversation bud around scaling and what that can look like. It's good to see. I hope that 1,000,000,001 answer helps.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, again, Joe, you covered it pretty damn well. So the only thing I can kind of add to that is my own personal testimonial to what you were talking about as far as sales tactic of the TPS. And so I basically, one of the things that Zengate is we commissioned a technical feasibility report to basically show that the choices and make sure that the choices that we're making in our architecture are indeed the right ones, and they're the most optimal ones for what we're looking to build out. And so we did a comparative analysis of other blockchains as well compared to Ergo. And one of the things that was done at first in the report was that the person that made it is a very well respected academic. So this was just kind of something that we need to give direction on, because that's what we were looking for. But they just kind of put it in there, comparing it by just the amount of TPS. And then they put Ergo and Cardano in there, and they compared it to, these other protocols, compared to Algorand, which is also a good protocol. I like Algorand. Or they compared it to Solana, and they say, oh, well, these guys are doing, 1,000 transactions at TPS. These guys are doing 10,000. These guys are doing a cajillion, whatever. But you guys are doing like 200 or something like that, or 100 or something like that, And I said, okay, but what's in the transaction? Because you can rack up these crazy TPS numbers, but what's in the transaction? If it's a 1 TPS per vote, well, then you can count the EUTXO as having 5,000 transactions a second, because you can put 5,000 outputs into one transaction, or even more. What was the benchmark that we set during the meetup? What was it, Joe? How many outputs for the transaction?
I'm going to say 15K, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to double check.
Well, enough to basically make my point.
Yeah, it's something that's like a sexy flex, but the reality is when you're talking about a live chain in the wild, you are going to have a variety of transactions that are a variety of sizes, right? So I don't know. It's something that it's like a good sales tactic, nice marketing technique, but it doesn't always translate even to reality. But it's a good question to discuss. We have a question here from JDog1231, and he said, "Any thoughts on recent research on sub-block confirmation protocols? I'm interested in L1 solutions to faster finality block time." Yeah, there is some good research out there, and the reality is that is something that longer term Ergo could support sub-block confirmation, something like Bitcoin NG style setup. But the reality is we're also working in that direction, right? When you're talking about that type of upgrade, that's something that would need a lot of time, a lot of testing, make sure it's done right. So is it a potential? Sure. It's something that Alex has actually talked about since day one of Ergo, is we can potentially support that as a mechanism to kind of speed up the confirmation time.
All right, what do we got next? We got about 10 minutes. Let's get a couple more questions.
Well, it said, can you expand more on community tokens being listed on exchanges? Okay, so what does that look like? Well, the first thing that most exchanges will ask for is, number one, some form of entity that is liable for the listing, which means that companies that are projects that are going to list on most exchanges need to formally list and incorporate. That's something that I'm sure myself and Dan can help in terms of just opening doors and making connections. Then basically what most will want is some type of external security audit in terms of the validity of the code itself. And they will also want some kind of legal opinion from a law firm that gives them some form of imaginary liability in terms of whether this is a security or not. Right. And I say imaginary liability because the reality is our space is very foggy and uncertain, and there's no fucking clarity with anything. So we'll see. Now, unfortunately, that puts real costs on community tokens. And so when someone is spinning up a new project, that needs to be a consideration, right? Where, developers kind of have to ask the question, okay, do I want to bring this to exchanges, or do I want this to live in decentralized ecosystems? And the reality is, once there's infrastructure like Rosen and bridging, you may be able to exist simply on chain and not, be exposed to centralized exchanges. And suddenly it's a little bit easier because you don't have the legal complexity and compliance complexity that exchanges are going to want. But if you do want to take the path where, let's say, a project wants to get listed on a major exchange, the reality is taking a project to market like that is going to have cost, right? It just is. Like an audit is not cheap. Legal opinions, I don't know if anybody here has dealt with lawyers. That's not always cheap. So they need to budget, and they need to have some mechanism to carry those costs, right? And oftentimes that needs to show up somewhere in their tokenomics, unless you just have someone that has deep pockets and can carry that personally, which many times is not the case. So in terms of like the initial planning for projects, that needs to be a consideration, because if I started with the mentality, okay, I'm just going to exist kind of on DEXs in the wild, and then I wanted to pivot to get on exchanges, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the back end side to make that fly.
Yeah, and just to emphasize on what Joe said, you definitely need to have a legal entity. So it has to be a legitimate business. And it's not easy. It's not difficult, but it's not easy. It has to be done properly. Things get checked, articles of incorporation, basically validates things that validate your business get checked. The same with the Apple Developer Program. Actually, for that program, they will literally call you up and verify with you. So it's not all automated. There was when Zengate was verified by the Apple Developer Program, I literally had somebody from the Dublin Apple support office call me and verify that my company, in fact, did exist and that we did do what we say we do. So, yeah, company is very important. And again, it's as far as technology is concerned, if it is a native asset, theoretically it can be listed wherever Ergo is listed because we essentially use the same wallet. Again, we haven't done that yet, so we don't know what that's going to look like. But with Cardano, that has been done with native assets. So theoretically, with Ergo, it should be the same kind of the same pathway. So again, if you guys really are legitimately interested to get your project going, without promising anything, please reach out to me or Joe, and we'll do all we can to facilitate the discussions for you and to get moving in the right direction.
All right, let's see. Here's a good question that I think you could take, Dan. I seem to understand that Ergo is focused on retail. Is there room for institutional adoption? What are the possible applications on an institutional level?
Well, I think that Ergo can be adopted on a national level. I think it's a strong enough architecture, strong enough network, strong enough concept that with enough hash rate, we can adopt it for national level applications, and whatever those could be. Those could be payment systems, those could be traceability applications, those it could be DID applications, decentralized identity applications. We can onboard countries, and this is actually another thing that I'm actually actively pursuing is national level adoption for Ergo. I mean, really, it's just the possible. I really don't see anything you can do with Ergo as far as what blockchains, what hot, cool things, quote unquote, blockchains can do for institutional and national adoption. Like I said, I think it might not be as exciting, but I think the easiest pathway to adoption would be through payment systems. I think the second one would be some sort of an infrastructure play. Again, decentralized identity, doing government IDs, potentially doing land deeds. That's also something that can be definitely that are going to be utilized for because of the various tooling that we have, as well as privacy tooling. Because a lot of these things, so if you have a government, for example, you're doing DIDs, right? And you have a government that has really strong information privacy policies. What we have built with Ergo, I think, is actually very synergetic with that. With the European GDPR standards, with even with the Japanese standards, with Asian standards for information privacy, I believe that it's a bit of it takes a bit of infrastructure maneuvering because, some of you know how some governments feel about quote unquote privacy coins. And even though Ergo is not a privacy coin, it's got a lot of privacy tooling, which would make some governments kind of, raise an eyebrows like, whoa, wait a second, you guys have,
like ZKs and you got ZKPs and you got all this privacy stuff, and you got a mixer and you got this, you got that. Well, are you a privacy client? Well, not really. We just have the tools for privacy. But I think that a government that truly is, that truly understands the value of that would use those tools to their advantage, to bring that kind of security and just an allowance of privacy to their citizens. So, yeah, many, many different ways that we can do it. I see this coming to us, and very soon.
All right. Well, how many more questions do you want to take down? I know you're.
Let's do one more.
Got a really serious question for you, Dan. Prepare yourself.
Go for it.
You prefer beer or whiskey?
Well, it depends on the beer, and it depends on the whiskey, and it depends on the mood. Like right now, Joe is drinking whiskey. He wants you to think that he's drinking coffee, but it's actually Irish coffee. Yeah, I like whiskey, but it has to be the good stuff. Cheap whiskey gives you cheap hangovers. Beer the same. I like, Japanese beer. In fact, some of my Japanese friends kind of give me like, oh, come on, man, type of things, because I'm into Asahi Super Dry. But I don't know. I just like Asahi Super Dry. It's kind of like the Coors Light of Japan, but I like it. It's really nice and refreshing. So again, depends on the mood, depends on the company, and depends on the product.
It's fair.
What about you, Joe? What do you drink up there in the mountains of Colorado?
Well, if you're talking about this trade-off, there's something to be said about a nice beer on a really hot day. But, I live in the mountains, so, whiskey goes well with a fire. What can you say? 16 degrees outside is a hot day, right? And I'm not talking Celsius, I'm talking Fahrenheit. Yeah. I mean, whiskey goes well with the fire, and where I live, that's more of a thing. But, if I'm somewhere where, I come off the mountain and it's like 90, 100 degrees, I don't even know what to do. Cold beer in that situation, just fits. It just fits. So again, it has to do with like the ambiance in the company and the product. But yeah, I would say I lean more towards the whiskey side.
Yeah, just make sure that it's just whiskey and not whiskey and chainsaws, because we all know how much you love chainsaws, Joe.
Yeah, no, that's the end of the day. That's when the fire's nice. So.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Well, I think we can call it for you a morning, for me a night.
Yep. Thanks for coming.
Thanks everybody for looking at that photo of me. That hopefully I can get a better one, because that one kind of looks a little bit embarrassing and blurry. I don't really look like that in real life. I'm a lot sharper in real life. As Joe will find out in October, because he actually, as long as that me and Joe have been working together and message each other and talk to each other, we have never met in real life. And that is the that's the 21st century for you. That's the blockchain, the crypto game for you. Yeah. I work with this guy every day. Never met him in real life. Always see him on a screen.
Well, there was a ton of questions that we didn't have a chance to dig into. If you're out there and you asked some questions that we missed, please show up next time. We'll try to cover them. There was actually quite a lot of good questions there. A couple of shit posters, but that's the internet. What can you do? Have a good one, everyone.
Yep. Thanks a lot, everyone.